Thank you for joining Dr. Judy WTF, What the Freud? And by way of introduction, my name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I'm the founder of the Mind Map System for Healing Human Disconnect, director of the Psychological Healing Center, where we use the mind map to heal human disconnect. And today we're going to talk about, can narcissistic mothers love? And originally I was going to do a show called Can Narcissists Love? But since this is coming into Mother's Day, I decided to add the word mother in there because this is a significant week and significant weekend. And a lot of people who come to the Psychological Healing Center are injured because they just didn't get all the psychological nutrients from their mother, father, primary caregiver. So if you don't like the title, why do narcissistic mothers love, or can they love? Just change the word. Can a narcissist love? And then apply it to whoever you want to. So the short answer is narcissistic injuries are on a continuum. That's the short answer. The very short answer is that without empathy, you can't really fully, deeply love. I've done tons of shows on control versus empathy and the effects of narcissistic mothers on their children. And this is a sort of a conglomeration of all those concepts. And mainly, we are going to do a lot of mind mapping as we usually do, because what the mind map system does is it sources the problem. So rather than treat the symptom, which I'm not very fond of, I like to treat it at the causal level. And for those of you who still do not have a copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, please grab that copy. It is free. And you can read it, you can psychoeducate yourself on your wounds of childhood, how you reacted, how you encoded it, how it tore you down, and how to morph out of this psychological prison, so to speak. So if you will be so kind, please put that mind map up so we can look at the inception point. And this mind map is a pathway to healing from human disconnect. The basic concept is that wherever we are disconnected from, we're going to have pain. So disconnections come in many forms. They come in the form of physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, control, smothering, spoiling. So any form of disconnect forms a wedge or an opening for a pain point between starting with mother-infant, continuing with father-infant connection, and then looking at the dyad of the mother and the father and their connection, or primary caregivers. I'll put that term in because today traditional families are not the only types of families that exist. And so we're looking at that primary connection between the mother and the child and what's going on there. So what's supposed to go on there is a lot of mirroring, a lot of attuning, a lot of skin-to-skin contact in an ideal world, breastfeeding. In an ideal world, we have a two-parent family where one supports the other as that mother or primary is trickling down the love and the nutrients to the child. And so it's a very strong supportive structure. I call it the system gone right. And I don't know too many people who have that perfect white picket fence childhood where mom was stay at home and breastfeeding and dad or secondary was working and giving mom an opportunity to bond to the child, and then dad had the child's back and the mom's back. It's a rare find, and that's why unfortunately we're not in good shape. Just the other day I was talking to one of my patients about how I would have no patience, and nor would the psychological field necessarily be as busy if mothers just got it right, if families just got it right. And what does getting it right mean? Let's go back to Dr. John Bowlby and what gives our children the foundation for mental health is this consistency and unconditional love. And if you don't have it to give, then the child is not going to get it. And so there it is. Mothers who are injured, mothers who don't have what I refer to as empathy, are not able to connect properly to that child, and everything goes awry from this point out. So let's say that you have a mother, and that mother has dreams of having a baby. Why? Because she wants a little mini me. She wants a baby that will look like her or fulfill her dreams, or a baby of the opposite sex who will protect her like her husband who doesn't, or left the family, or she's got her own agenda, is what I'm trying to say. And if a parent has their own agenda for why they had that baby, that's already conditional, and that's already a disconnect. If you grab a copy of my book, Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect, I use a case study in there, and many case studies, but the primary case study is about a mother and a daughter who had a huge disconnect because she wanted her daughter to be her little doll. And the characters are in the book are referenced to Cindy and Roberta. And Cindy came in so thoroughly depressed, she was almost catatonic, almost ready for hospitalization. And so what I found in the unfolding of the therapy is that she was full of rage toward her mother. So what she did with her feelings is, instead of expressing them, which she couldn't because mother wouldn't hear it anyway, she was imploding with the anger, and that implosion caused her to shut down severely and spiral down into a deep depression. So this is an example that you can read about, and there are many case studies that you can read about to really illustrate this mother-daughter disconnect. Fortunately, the mother was so desperate because the daughter was going towards suicidal tendencies that she participated in the healing, and it did turn around radically, which is why I used it as a case study. So, point being, narcissists have a very low level of empathy. And that is why it is so difficult to have a relationship with a person on the spectrum of narcissism, because this is what you're going to find. You're going to find that that person is more in love with themselves than they are with you. And it's going to show up in several ways. It's going to show up in ways where, again, you're being used and manipulated to be an extension of themselves. So you're going to feel as though you have a particular role to play in the family dynamics, such as esteeming them or regulating their emotions, which actually should be the opposite. Mother's supposed to regulate the baby's emotions. And it's so radically turned around that the baby, instead of receiving the nutrients, the baby is missing these psychological nutrients and develops what I refer to as a hole in the soul. So this is a call-in show, everybody. I want to hear from you. It's Mother's Day. I have had so many phone calls from people who are bleeding out because everyone wants a mother. Everyone wants this woman in their life who's their primary, who loves unconditionally and cherishes them and protects them and picks a mate that's going to do same, and creates a family structure that's going to keep that child safe and keep that child in a place where she feels that she's a part of the system, specifically the child, not the adult, not the parent, not the sibling, not the best friend. And so what I'm referring to is this role reversal that happens. So in the course of development, the mother might enroll that child as the best friend. And this is actually the child might feel complimented by that, like, wow, my mother's sharing everything with me. However, there reaches a point where too much information. Why is mother telling me about her love life with dad? Why is she complaining to me about her relationship with her best friend? Why is she tattling on my brother to me? Why am I in this position? And what it does is it robs the child of their childhood. It's really, really sad. And it's sad because it's not like the child has been reading all these textbooks on narcissism, so they don't really get what's going on. They just want to please the mother. And that's where the whole system gets reinforced, because the child is reinforcing the mother. The mother receives these emotional goodies. It feels good to her to have her confidant. It feels good to her to have her daughter or her son living out her dreams, and so on and so forth. And so the child wants to comply because this is our main source of supply, is our mother. And if we sever the bond with mommy dearest, not good news. I have so many people who walk into the Psychological Healing Center, or nowadays Zoom into the Psychological Healing Center, who are highly symptomatic. They have psychosomatic disorders, back pains, stomach pains, chest pains, fibromyalgia, all kinds of diseases that are stress related. And there's nothing more stressful than trying to hold on to a toxic bond with your mother. And this is how people pleasers are formed. When the mother reverses the role, when the child has to please mother, they form a template where they believe that in order to be good, in order to be loved, and in order to feel significant, they have to please. And these are some of the core beliefs, just some of the core beliefs that land in panel number 3. Let's put that mind map up so you can see what the heck I'm talking about. So what I'm saying is these childhood wounds of manipulation, control, neglect, so on, create reactions, which then create encodings, which then turn cognitive, or at least they turn into belief systems about the self and the world. Belief systems like, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, unless I please, I'm not going to be loved, unless I'm in a relationship where I intuit the needs of my partner, I'm not going to keep this relationship. So all kinds of dynamics are being set up here. And as you can see, when these dynamics are activated in other relationships, what happens? Chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And so oftentimes I'll see people in the form of defenses. They're coming in and they're defending by using alcohol, or they're defending by using OCD to defend against anxiety, or they're shutting down, or they've turned passive aggressive, or they just don't want to really participate in life, and they want to disconnect totally, so they become isolationisms. And I really want to hear from you. And by the way, if you want 24/7 help, please go ahead and get information, download, and 24/7 you can receive that book and make an appointment, book a 15-minute consultation with us. We have a really beautiful team of therapists who are there to help you. And we are international, so we treat people from all kinds of countries. We're big on psychoeducating ourselves as a team on multi-generational wounds, which are wounds that are passed down from one generation to the next. We're really tuned in on cultural wounds and how the culture affects the baby and the family and so on. And again, if you focus on symptoms, you're not going to get far, because these symptoms are tricky. So when you cure one, another one pops up, and when you cure that one, another one pops up. So by that, I'm saying that the symptoms are only hieroglyphics, meaning cues and clues that point to the real problem, which is mother, infant, father, infant, family disconnect. So please call in. I want to hear from you. And I know that my audience is really smart at this point. A lot of people out there who have listened to multiple shows. And I used to run the show, Happy Narcissistic Mother's Day, which you can get and download on your laptop computer and tune into a show that I did years ago for Mother's Day. And this is sort of a continuation of that in some sense. Really, really understanding that if you have a mother or a primary caregiver who was not brought up with a blueprint of empathy, if they were controlled, smothered, manipulated, if they were emotionally ignored, if they were tossed aside, if they were used as an object, what do you expect? What do you expect this person to be like in terms of relationships? They're not going to be very, very relationship oriented. So to them, the relationship is, what can you do for me, rather than what can I do for you as a mother to the child. So I hope that you're beginning to see that this is a system gone wrong, and this is a system that can turn around through the use of a mind map system that shines the truth light on all these wounds and how we react to these wounds and how we encode them and how we get tripped up in life. Because this kind of a blueprint of an empathic mother is really, really severe on the psyche. So let me go on about symptoms. So when people walk into the clinic or zoom in to the clinic, I see a lot of anxiety. I see a lot of depression. I see a lot of people who reactivate their wounds by getting involved in similar patterns as their dynamics in the family. In other words, they will do what I call the what the Freud, and they will go picking and end up with people who will push them aside, objectify them, sexualize them without forming a relationship, not really caring about them on the deeper levels. They don't know how to have these deeper conversations and connections. Why? Because on some level, people who've been injured this way have decided that control and manipulation is the way to have a relationship, and they don't really get that vulnerability and connection are of value and are even possible. Because let's face it, if your mother couldn't model this for you, then, as I say in my book, parents set the bar. And if they set the bar on the bar of apathy, then that's what the child learns. And if they set the bar on apathy and the child becomes the people pleaser, then that's how they function. Now, that doesn't mean that they're healthily loving their partner. It's just that they're replicating, they're doing a what the Freud by picking another toxic bond with a maid, a friend, a boss, whoever, and replicating that horrible pattern. And then there it is again. They activate their core childhood wound and their core belief system that unless they please, or unless they're an object, or unless they do what the partner says they want, which is, I guess, pleasing the partner, they're not going to be able to stay in that relationship. And so I really do want to hear from you. I love talking to my listeners. And I've had more and more people calling me stating that they are suffering from narcissistic abuse. And this is what I call narcissistic abuse, is when things turn around 180 degrees, and instead of being nurtured and cared for by your primary, you find yourself on the opposite end of the spectrum, where you're nurturing them and you're providing for them. So let me get into a couple of case studies. And
you have a call.
Okay, so here's my case study, a live one. Thank you so much for calling in. What is your name, please?
Sherry,
Hi, Sherry. Thank you so much for picking up that phone. And where are you, Sherry? What part of the world? I always like to know.
Minnesota.
Okay, very much appreciated. And how do you relate to the topic?
I relate on all levels that you are talking about. So,
Oh, I'm sorry
my
to hear
mother,
that. Yeah.
yeah, everything that you have said points directly to my relationship with my mother.
Okay.
It was constantly please, and my dad reinforced that I needed to please my mother.
Okay.
And I've always wondered when I was kind of a young adult, why don't I have this feeling of compassion, love for my mom? Something just seems
Yes.
missing.
Yes.
And as I continued into my adulthood, I began to figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it was all about her.
Mm-hmm.
And every conversation related back to her, and I was supposed to please her. And if I didn't please her, I got in trouble from my dad. So, and it's just something that is hard to keep up with, and you feel empty.
And I call that the double dungeon of darkness. I have my own little Dr. Judy isms that occur to me when I see a dynamic, and this one is very much like a double dungeon of darkness because you turn to your mother and she's of no support, and you turn to your father and he has her back and not yours, and then you turn
Mm-hmm.
aside for comfort, and there's a sense of emptiness because we build our sense of self through what we are fed from the outside in. It's an outside in model. Okay, so there you are trying to manage this extreme narcissistic letdown, and then internally you don't have the tools to soothe yourself. You don't have the tools to even act as your own enlightened witness, although you got a little inkling that something was wrong. How old were you when you started figuring out that there's something off here?
Probably late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was after being more, we lived isolated. They isolated us from their families. So they were very far away.
I see.
And so after I was exposed to other families,
Mm-hmm,
college, going to other people's families, things of that nature,
mm-hmm.
and I would hear them talk or watch them interact, I'm
Yeah,
like, something's missing.
yeah. What a painful realization, and that's part of the manipulation and control is they isolate the family, so they will cut off from other families because, of course, they don't want their system busted because it sort of works for them, doesn't it? So, do they want to be
Hmm.
told by other people, "Hey, how come your daughter's now being forced to take piano lessons? She told me she doesn't like piano lessons. How come your son is forced to play baseball? He doesn't really want to play baseball." And so again, it's better, and I say that with quotes around it, for the family to just isolate so that nobody can penetrate the system. Nobody can really get insight into the system because the system gone wrong will stay in the darkness until you start exposing it. And my idea of exposing it is by telling the truth and by busting the system and by waking up. And that's why the mind map is such a powerful truth buster, because it gets right down to the cause and it gets right down to identifying the lies and the misperceptions, misconceptions, and bad blueprinting that was passed along from one family to the next, multi generationally, multiculturally. And so, did you have anybody in your life that was an enlightened witness, meaning stood beside you and said, Something's wrong here. You're not crazy. You're being made crazy.
No, because they isolated us. So I never had any aunts, uncles, cousins, any family whatsoever around us. And then they moved us so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in 5th grade, we moved again so my dad could start a business. But again, keeping us isolated and not ever long enough that you would cultivate with some, type of adult. And then I ended up marrying a narcissist.
I'm not surprised. I'm very sorry to hear that. Are you still with this person?
I've been away for 5 years.
Okay.
But I tried the divorce process and it's disastrous. It turns your insides out.
Well, I did several episodes on divorcing a narcissist, and it is the most expensive process. Expensive emotionally, expensive psychologically, emotionally, money-wise. It's just really, really hard to pull out of that system because, again, they want to control, demean, devalue, and they want to seriously wipe you out so that there's nothing left for you to fight with. And so was that your experience?
Yes. And so I just had to pull away because otherwise I was going to, like you said, emotionally sink. And I couldn't withstand it anymore.
Okay. So a very, very, very tough experience. And I like to think that people who've been through these tough experiences bottom out in some way, shape, and form, and then find their indignation. Indignation is simply that point inside, that pride point that says, "How dare you?" and never again. And maybe you can't say it to the person who is not willing to hear it, but you could say it. You could just say, "Never again. There's no way that I will ever invest in somebody who demeans and devalues me. There's no way that I will ever give so much to a taker. There's no way that I will ever feel like an object to another human being. There's no way that I will ever choose a partner and have children with that partner who won't role model kindness and ethics and warmth and so on." And so I think that part of the process of healing is not only identifying these wounds and reactions and encodings and breaking down the defense mechanisms. You could see the whole mind map. It's a system. It's an interconnected system that is 10 sessions in length. We do panel 6 twice because we want to process feelings about mother and father. And this is a pathway that really allows for people to get in touch with their authentic hurt, anger, feelings of betrayal, crazy gaslighting experiences that they've encountered, manipulations, controls, feelings of being objectified, and all of the above. So what symptoms are you still living with, Sherry?
I feel empty. I don't know who I am because everything I do is forgiving, giving to others, trying to please, trying to make them happy. And so if someone says, go do something for yourself, I don't know what that is. I've never had the opportunity to explore that.
Right. Okay. So let's
go. And so, and it makes you very depressed. I mean, very depressed. Okay. Like I'm just at this age worn out.
You're worn out. Okay. So you need some triaging. So if this were a medical center right now, I would put you in the triage section of stopping the bleeding out. So if you go to panel number 5, you see those bubbles that are representative of defense mechanisms. And what happened to you is because you got so violated and used, you became very permeable or porous, and you just allowed everything in, and nothing into yourself, but you allowed people to penetrate and manipulate and use you. So in essence, you allowed them to bleed you out. So the first line of healthy defense would be to shut down the giving. And there are little things that you could do. I'm not big on behavior modification, although I used it for so many years. Just little things that'll give you the message that you're giving yourself is when you can, ask for help, even if it's a small help. Like, excuse me, do you mind getting me that can on the upper shelf at the supermarket? Excuse me, do you think you can help me with this package? Excuse me, do you mind helping me with this problem? I'm not really good at computers. So any way in which you can start getting in the habit of taking in. Okay? Small little
Yeah,
things.
that's a good one, because that's hard for me to do. I tend not to ask for help.
Because in your world, and this is where the cracked lens of perception comes in your world, if you don't give, then you fill in the sentence. Then what?
If I don't give, I don't know. I mean, I'm just, if I don't give, I'm empty.
Exactly. If you don't give, then you don't exist.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Okay, there's the empty. And so your defense mechanism is to people please, and then you feel that you exist. And so through the therapy, you would identify this as a bad blueprint. And I'm saying that to you because, as I say to everyone, you are not the cause of part one of your life. Okay, I'll say it again. You and everyone listening are not the cause of part one of your life. You've been at the effect of this bad blueprinting and coding and so on. And the point is that as you do the work, you can unwind, undo this. You could start to nourish yourself and start to grow and separate and individuate like you were supposed to have, not be codependent and tied and people pleasing and so on. And so as you do the work, the starting point is emptiness. And I'm saying to you, great. And I don't mean great that you feel empty, but empty out even further. Let's empty out all the damage. Okay? Let's empty out all the damage and close up the walls so that damaging people cannot come through. And eventually you will learn to be a semi-permeable membrane, meaning a person who lets in the good and keeps out the bad and knows how to vet people and knows how to use your boundaries appropriately with the right people at the right time. And that's when you're going to keep and hang on to this nourishment. Because right now, let's say I gave you a bunch of compliments. Oh, you're wonderful, you're loving, you're brilliant, you're this and that. You know what would happen to those compliments? You tell me.
Oh, you went silent for a while, so I'm sorry. I don't know what happened to the connection.
Let's say that I said to you, oh, no, you're all wrong. You're lovable. You're wonderful. You're worthy. You're a terrific person, and all the compliments in the world. What would you do with those compliments?
I wouldn't believe you.
Exactly. Exactly. Because your core belief resonates on the level of emptiness, worthlessness, and so on. And so I would be the unbelievable, and the believable would be the psychovirus or the coding that your parents coded into you. Do you see that? That's how powerful this stuff is. I work with people who are exceptionally wonderful. And then I discover things about their core belief, like that they're worthless and they should have been an abortion. And I'm looking at them objectively going, wow, that person thinks that. Mm-hmm. Why? Because at the core they were objectified. At the core they were not nurtured with unconditional love, or they were smothered or manipulated, or something got injured at the causal level. And no matter how many trophies they get, no matter how many degrees they get, no matter how beautiful they are and how many beauty contests or races they win, the core doesn't change. And that's why I use this conflict
No.
as an example, because it just doesn't stick. So your receiver of the good has been damaged. Okay, so part of the work for you would be to learn how to receive, but before you learn how to receive, you've got to empty out all of the damage. And through the process, you get an opportunity to really emotionally empty out so that these feelings don't implode and make you depressed and sick and toxic, or explode and project and vomit all over other people, or a combination of the two. And so it's really, really important to go step by step through this process. I was just talking to somebody who graduated from the mind map system, just such a wonderful human being. And I really was so glad that he chose to work with me, because he was in the middle of a very bad breakup. And we caught the process in time, because what he was doing was he was going down the rabbit hole of worthlessness and something wrong with me and I have no voice and so on. And before he was able to really grab onto that and sink deeper, we started doing the work and turning it around. And so on session number 10, which was actually today, just graduated today, and all of those core beliefs have now been very, very much dismantled. And so I was reading them back to him, and he was laughing like, I believe that, and I believe this. Like, yeah, you really, you really, really did. And we were laughing together because he was saying, oh, and my friend is going through traditional therapy, and he told me that what he was doing was crying and venting, and he felt better. And we both kind of laughed about it on the level of the traditional therapy, for the most part, doesn't have a from, through, to structure. And certainly many therapies, aside from psychoanalytic therapy, which I was trained in, doesn't go to the cause. And if they do go to the cause, then two things usually come as that. Number one, it takes way too long. I don't think most people have the money and the time for traditional therapy. Certainly psychoanalytic psychotherapy or psychoanalysis can take many years. And so this is I call it an Occam's razor, right to the point of inception of the problem. So what I'm saying to you, long-winded way of saying to you, this is a process. You're not stuck here. You can grow. What keeps us from growing is repeating and repeating. Because why do we repeat? Because we're hoping that we're going to run the same race and get different results. So you're hoping on an unconscious level. This is why I'm saying you're not the cause. You're hoping that if you pair up with somebody who's rejecting and objectifying you, and then you please them enough, they'll turn around and get down on their knees and say, honey, I see the light. You're a wonderful person. I've done it all wrong with you. I've mistreated you. I'm so sorry. So when is that going to happen?
It doesn't, but it does, just to get your attention again.
Very,
so
sometimes very well said. Very well said. So what you're saying is they could fake it till they make it and draw you in again, and then put you through the loop again and spit you out again. And then every time you go through that cycle, you get more and more depressed until you're suicidally depressed. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, such a bad mother. I'm, so, blah, blah, woe is me, draw you in. I love you dearly. I'm sorry I messed up, and then but it's all about her, and the same thing happens again.
Well, that's it. The same thing happens again. And people know I talk about my grandson a lot because I love him so much. And he's now 8.5 years old. Unbelievable. Last time he was on my show was years ago. And I taught him that sorry is not good enough. So when he does something and he says, Grandma, sorry, I say to him, Alexander, you don't sound sorry at all. Do you know what the real sorry is? And back in the day, he'd say, what? And now he knows that the real sorry is cleaning it up and then not doing repeat behaviors. That's the real sorry. Real sorry is a person who has empathy. A person who's simply trying to erase the damage will sarcastically or unempathically just say, oh, sorry. I've heard that so many times. Haven't you heard people say sorry? And you look at their face, they're not sorry at all. They just want to pass it through and not have you confront them anymore and just comply with it. But a person who has empathy will feel what you're feeling because their heart and soul on some level is connected to you because they have the capacity to do that. And your way of connecting is through pleasing. And so that's another way to connect that's not working for you, because who's going to eat you up alive are all the people who want to be pleased, all the people who want to have at you and need you to enslave yourself to them. So that's a sure formula for disaster for you and even for them, because it will never fill their hole in the soul. It's endless. So if you do this, that, this, and then a bag of chips on top of it, no go. It just sinks right through and falls right through, and they're hungry again. They're hungry for your attention.
Right.
Right.
Nothing's ever good enough.
Correct. Okay. So I really want to invite you to do this process, and we do have wonderful people on the team, and find somebody that can work with you at the budget that you can afford. And I do have that mind map video series, which is very, very helpful. It's $195. I'm going to try to keep it at that price. And it's just so people can learn the system. It's me standing up in front of my huge painting of my mind map and going through it panel by panel and explaining the wounds of childhood, both the overt wounds, which are the ones that people inflict on you, like verbal abuse or physical abuse, and then the covert ones or the passive ones where, for example, your father didn't step in. So there's acts of omission and commission. Commission is when they do it to you, and the omission is when they fail to do it for you. And so this process is something that everyone can learn, and they can start thinking like a shrink, and they could start addressing these childhood wounds. And then you can pair it with electing a therapist from our staff who will journey through this process with you and process your emotions with you, so that they can act as an analyst of your past, present, and direct you into a future, and also as an enlightened witness, so that you could feel that you're not crazy. You've been made crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You've been lied to subtly, not so subtly, and you bought the lies, because all children buy the lies. If mommy says I'm stupid, I'm stupid. If daddy says I'm ugly, I'm ugly. If mommy and daddy both say that I'm stupid and ugly, ooh, that, double dungeon of darkness. Here we go, right?
Yes.
So please reach out if you haven't already. Feel free to call the Psychological Healing Center. Get a copy of my book. The video is an easy download. Don't wait for it in the mail. You can purchase it online, and you can download it. It comes with the book. It comes with the journal, and then you start journeying through this process, and you will not be naive anymore. Your eyes will be open, and you will clearly understand why you're symptomatic, why you choose the people you choose, why your self-esteem is in the toilet, why your neck and shoulders ache, why you are still wishing and hoping that your mother, father, a sister, brother, lover, husband, wife will come around, and they usually don't. I would say 99.999% of the time, they just don't. And one of the episodes that I put up there is, I don't remember the name of it, is when a parent is dying, I think, inheritance and narcissism, and where your parent is dying, and then you think, well, they're going to wake up, they're going to apologize, they're going to leave me something. Pardon me? What were you saying?
No, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I had somebody call me today and tell me that they got nothing, nada in the will, zero, zippo. Okay, they're a bunch of siblings, and they got narced out. By narced out, I mean that they were discarded on many levels. And so people wish and pray that on the deathbed, the parent will wake up and say, honey, I'm so close to death now. I can see the light. I'm connected with my higher power, whatever spiritual path or universal path that they are on. And I can now see clearly that I've hurt you. And I wish and pray that you forgive me. And if I could redo this with you, I would. And please, I beg on my knees for forgiveness. People wait for this. You know, it's the saddest thing. They'll show up to the deathbed waiting for this because they've held in so much hurt and anger and sorrow and so forth. And they're hoping, well, we've, got another few minutes or daddy or mommy goes to the other side. So he or she's still talking. So I'm hoping they'll say something. And again, 99.999% of the time, no.
No, and I know that feeling because that's how I have felt. Like I beat my head against a wall
Right.
to get them to understand me or show some empathy or unconditional love.
Yes.
It never happens. It won't happen. Yeah.
It won't happen. And once people get through their head that it's not their fault that their parents don't have empathy, and even if you yourself are suffering from lack of empathy, it's because it's your defense mechanism against the treatment that you've had. And if you suffer from having these narcissistic symptoms, then I would greatly respect you self-reflecting on it and understanding that if you're hurting other people, if you're objectifying others, if you're numbing out, if you're the one in this place, then again, you are not the cause of part one of your life. However, we're all responsible. Just because we're not the cause, it doesn't mean we're not responsible. I'm not shirking the responsibility. We're all responsible to heal so that we can be better human beings. We could be the light unto other people. We can pay it forward to the next generation. We can clean it up with people that we have hurt. And so that we can soften our hearts once we learn how to trust again, and once we learn how the trust has been broken, and once we learn to separate and individuate from that blueprint, which wasn't really meant for us anyway. It was meant for the garbage can, okay? That poor blueprint that blueprinted that you're stupid, ugly, worthless, unlovable, and on and on and on, is meant for the garbage can. So, any other thoughts or questions?
No, you've been so helpful. I appreciate. I've been watching your videos for the past probably month and a half, and it has been very enlightening and very helpful. And like you said, traditional therapy, I've done that, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not feeling better.
I know, I
And
know.
so
I
this is
listen,
the answer, I think.
I used to do traditional therapy because I didn't have a mind map when I was a student because I created the mind map. So obviously I didn't have it. And I was pretty darn good at what I was doing because I was intuitive and insightful and very analytic. And I was able to really empathize with the people that I work with. And I got them there somehow. Sometimes I don't even know how. And sometimes I felt like I was lost myself because I didn't have a map, and my supervisors were telling me things like, "Oh, Judy, you talk too much during the session." And I thought, wow, that's bad. I talk too much during the session. I don't feel that way anymore because it's my job to help to psychoeducate people. And it's my job to intercept the system gone wrong and to make points and connect the dots. So I don't feel that I talk too much. And some of the supervision that I received, it was the best that they had to offer, that it had to do with let the transference unfold, meaning let the patient form their connection to you and project all of their hatred upon you and all of their boredom upon you, and let them play out their system gone wrong on you. And that's a good idea. I mean, that's psychoanalysis, but it takes so damn long and costs so much money. And at the end of the day, the therapist is not the cause of the damage. So I see it as my job to direct it back, not to me, although I'll take it on and process the feelings, but I point it back to, you see that blueprint over there, panel one, and the rejection and the objectification and the breaking of the trust and all the betrayal. So no wonder you don't trust me. No wonder you don't feel the therapy is ever going to work because you don't have hope in the world. So I do put myself into the formula, but if I keep doing that for months and years, we're going to get nowhere for a long time, and we're never going to bring in the blueprint and the cause. And that's how vital it is to go there and not just stay in symptom land or stay in cognitive behavioral or concentrate on stopping the symptoms through medication, although there are some cases where medication is really important, particularly in the case where somebody is psychotic and they need to thought control, and in times where I've encountered people who have bipolar disorder and they really do need something to regulate them. And I respect psychiatry, however, it's not the complete solution. It could be adjunctive. However, we still need to go back. We still need to go back and uncover and do our psychological detective work. So thank you, Sherry, very much for calling in, and feel free to contact me, the Psychological Healing Center. Okay, and you don't have to live this way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Good night.
So good night. So for those of you who are listening, I hope you're learning a lot through Sherry, through this process that I'm unfolding to you, and know that it truly is possible to soften your heart, to develop empathy, to stop the people pleasing, to disconnect from people who are vampiring you. All of this is really possible. You just have to have a pathway to healing. And for those of you who need help, call and get that link and download it, and a copy of the book. And for those of you who hate the idea of therapy, at least you can do the 9-panel mind map video series and learn and psychoeducate yourself. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, And I will see you next Thursday. Take care, everyone. Good night.